Alicia Gray is having a word with someone in the crowd, and now security is also involved.
Well, looks like that fan is being...
Picture this. You're watching a high-stakes WNBA playoff game when suddenly a player points into the crowd, security rushes over, and fans are getting escorted out. The broadcast cuts away, whispers start flying, and within hours, social media explodes with accusations and outrage. But what if I told you that everything you thought you knew about that moment was completely fabricated? What if the entire incident was nothing more than smoke and mirrors, designed to cover up one of the most embarrassing playoff performances in recent memory? Well, buckle up, because that's exactly what happened when Alicia Gray of the Atlanta Dream got caught red-handed spinning a web of lies that unraveled fast.
Does not appreciate fans, don't want us there. We have been thrown out of games for a multitude of ridiculous things. We have watched these players complain and trash us all. They called half of us racist. They've called all types of stuff. All types of stuff. Now, without Caitlin Clark, the viewership has been cut in half by 50%. 50% for the playoffs. For the playoffs, y'all. And they still are getting fans
faster than a cheap sweater in a washing machine. And the fallout? It's absolutely devastating. Just 2 minutes ago, the truth finally came to light about one of the most controversial moments of this WNBA playoff season. And let me tell you, it's not pretty for Atlanta. What started as what appeared to be a serious fan incident during a crucial Game 2 between the Atlanta Dream and Indiana Fever has now been completely exposed as a desperate attempt to deflect attention away from a historically bad performance. And when I say historically bad, I mean the kind of performance that makes you question whether these players belong on a professional basketball court. But before we dive into the shocking details of how this lie fell apart piece by piece, we need to understand the bigger picture.
She got a fan kicked out last night against the Indiana Fever, only for the fan to speak their piece to the security. Security found out, oh, you didn't say anything at all, actually. Yeah, come back to your seat. Let me just wipe that seat off for you. Here, please, have a seat, ma'am. Alicia Gray played like absolute you-know-what last night and decided to take it out.
Here, the WNBA has a fan problem, and it's getting worse by the day. We're talking about a league that has been throwing fans out of games for absolutely ridiculous reasons, while simultaneously watching their viewership numbers crater without Caitlin Clark on the court. Think about this for a second. These players have spent months complaining about fans, calling half of them racist, and creating an atmosphere so toxic that people are literally choosing to stay home rather than support their teams. And the numbers don't lie. Playoff viewership has been cut in half, 50%. Without Clark in the lineup, that's not a slight dip, that's a catastrophic collapse. Yet, here they are, still finding ways to alienate the few fans who actually show up
back in and apologize to them. All right? They removed the couple because they do it to let the players calm down, because it's clear these players aren't professionals. Hey, that's what you owe us. You owe us at this point. Stop it. Stop it. So, she's now fully been exposed
to games. It's like watching someone pour gasoline on a house fire and then wondering why everything keeps burning down around them. So when Alicia Gray made that dramatic gesture toward the Indiana section during Game 2, pointing accusingly at fans and signaling security like she'd just witnessed some heinous crime, everyone initially took it at face value. After all, why would a professional athlete lie about something so serious in front of thousands of people and live television cameras? But that's exactly what makes this story so unbelievable, the sheer audacity of it all. What we witnessed in that moment was supposed to be a clear-cut case of fan misconduct. Gray turned, pointed directly at the Indiana section, and within seconds, security was escorting confused fans.
Oh, you're good, Lex. She's not even trying anymore. Gray lost her shit and said some very nasty words to the guy and the people next to him. because he said she's not even trying anymore. She can't handle that kind of heckling. Are you kidding me? Quit sports today.
Out of their seats while the broadcast quickly cut away from the scene. It had all the hallmarks of a serious incident, the kind that would dominate headlines and spark lengthy discussions about fan behavior and player safety. The timing seemed perfect for Atlanta too, giving them a convenient narrative to shift focus away from what was shaping up to be an absolutely brutal performance on the court. But here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean completely insane. Almost immediately after the incident, the story started changing. Not slightly, not with minor variations in details, but dramatically and inconsistently, like someone was making it up as they went along. Different media outlets began reporting completely different versions of what allegedly happened. Some described it as nothing more than standard heckling, the kind every professional athlete hears on any given night. Others hinted at something more serious and personal, though they couldn't seem to nail down exactly what that might be. This patchwork of contradictory explanations should have been the first red flag. When you have a genuine incident serious enough to warrant removing paying customers from a playoff game, the details don't change depending on who's telling the story. But that's exactly what was happening here, and eagle-eyed fans started picking up on the inconsistencies almost immediately. Then the eyewitness accounts started flooding in, and this is where the entire narrative completely collapsed. According to multiple fans who were sitting near the alleged incident, the only thing that was shouted was, and I quote, "You're good, Lex. She's not even trying anymore." Let that sink in for a moment. This comment wasn't directed at Alicia Gray as some sort of personal attack. It wasn't vulgar, it wasn't threatening, and it certainly wasn't racist. It was literally a fan encouraging Lexie Hull while making an observation that Gray wasn't playing with much intensity. We're talking about the most basic, run-of-the-mill sports commentary you'd hear at literally any basketball game from middle school to the NBA. This is the kind of thing that gets shouted thousands of times during every single sporting event across the country. Yet, somehow, this benign comment managed to trigger such a strong reaction from Gray that she felt the need to involve security and have paying customers removed from their seats during a crucial playoff game. But wait, it gets even more ridiculous. Those fans who were initially escorted out, they didn't stay gone. Reports confirmed that security brought them back to their seats later in the same game and actually apologized to them. Think about what that means for a second. If something genuinely serious had been said, something that warranted removing fans from a playoff environment, security doesn't just ask you to take a quick timeout before letting you waltz right back to your seat with an apology. The security personnel themselves reportedly explained that it was simply protocol to remove the fan to allow the player to calm down. Not because of what was said, not because of any actual misconduct, but because a professional athlete couldn't handle the most basic form of crowd interaction without having an emotional meltdown. It's honestly embarrassing when you think about it from that perspective. By this point, social media was absolutely going wild. Clips of the ejection were circulating everywhere, and fans were doing their own detective work, picking apart every aspect of Gray's claims. The phrases she had supposedly heard were being analyzed and debunked in real time. Commentators were calling the whole thing confusing and inconsistent. And by Monday morning, the consensus was clear. This looked like nothing more than a weak attempt to create a narrative that would deflect attention away from Atlanta's absolutely terrible performance on the court. And that's the most damaging part of this entire fiasco. The lie didn't stick. Instead of generating sympathy for Gray or the Dream, it made them look desperate and rattled while Indiana appeared tougher and more focused in every conceivable way. While Gray was busy pointing fingers at fans for saying she wasn't trying hard enough, the Fever were actually out there proving it on the scoreboard in the most dominant fashion possible. Speaking of that performance, let's talk about the context that makes Gray's behavior even more inexcusable. Indiana walked into that game too with 5 key players in street clothes, including the biggest star in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark. They were missing the player who single-handedly brought national attention back to the WNBA and completely transformed ticket sales for the entire league. For most teams, losing their franchise player right before a must-win playoff game would be devastating. For Indiana, it became the fuel for one of the most inspiring performances in recent playoff history. This was their first home playoff game since 2016, nearly a decade of absence from the postseason. The last time they'd hosted a playoff game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Tamika Catchings was still suiting up and Stephanie White was drawing up plays as their head coach. The weight of history, the pressure of elimination, and the loss of their biggest star should have been overwhelming. Instead, it became the perfect storm for Indiana to show exactly what they're made of. The atmosphere inside Gainbridge was absolutely electric. Red, now you know, shirts filled the lower sections, and the crowd was generating the kind of energy that makes you remember why home court advantage matters so much in playoff basketball. These weren't just fans showing up to be entertained. They were a unified force ready to lift their team when they needed it most. For a roster suddenly short on depth, that extra energy became the difference between survival and elimination. Coach Stephanie White had made it crystal clear after their Game 1 loss that the effort and intensity weren't good enough. She talked about needing to play with desperation and urgency for every single possession, and her players clearly heard that message loud and clear. From the opening tip, their body language was completely different. Quicker rotations on defense, stronger rebounding, better ball movement. They looked like a team that understood exactly what was at stake. And then there was Caitlin Clark herself, cheering from the bench with the kind of energy that reminded everyone why she's been such a transformative presence for this franchise. Instead of sulking about her injury, she was standing and celebrating every defensive stop, pumping up her teammates, and showing the kind of leadership that goes way beyond what shows up in the box score. But the real magic happened late in the third quarter when Indiana delivered the knockout punch that completely changed the trajectory of the game. It started with Aliyah Boston going to work in the post, using her footwork and strength to score over Atlanta's defense like they weren't even there. Before the dream could even reset, Chapetti jumped a passing lane for a steal that sent the crowd into an absolute frenzy. Then, with just seconds left on the clock, Lexie Hull launched a deep three-pointer at the buzzer that dropped through the net like it was guided by destiny itself. The crowd exploded, the energy in the building reached a fever pitch, and you could literally see the life drain out of Atlanta's players in that moment. What had been a competitive back and forth suddenly became a complete rout, and the dream never recovered. That sequence didn't just win them the game. It announced to the entire league that Indiana was ready to compete with anybody, anywhere, with or without their biggest star. The individual performances were nothing short of spectacular. Kelsey Mitchell poured in 19 points with 4 three-pointers, punishing every defensive gamble Atlanta tried to make. When they sagged off to stop interior scoring, Mitchell made them pay from outside. When they pressed up to contest her shots, her quick first step burned them off the dribble. Aliyah Boston provided steady scoring and rebounding, giving Indiana the inside presence they desperately needed. Natasha Howard was the glue that held everything together on both ends of the floor, while Lexie Hull brought energy and lockdown defense that completely neutralized Gray. But perhaps most impressively, rookie Michaela Timpson contributed 9 crucial points in limited minutes, showing the kind of composure that you rarely see from first-year players in playoff atmospheres. When your rookie is stepping up in elimination games while your opponent's veteran is creating fake controversies with fans, you know which team has its priorities straight. Defensively, Indiana was absolutely suffocating. They held Atlanta to just 60 points on 37.9% shooting, including a miserable 5 of 19 performance from three-point range. They limited the Dream to only 10 free throw attempts and contested virtually every shot attempt. It was a masterclass in team defense, with every single player buying into the game plan and executing it flawlessly. The final score, 77-60, told the entire story. While Alicia Gray was busy creating fictional narratives about fan behavior, the Indiana Fever were creating very real history on the basketball court. They proved they could win without Caitlin Clark. They proved they belonged in the playoffs. And most importantly, they proved that when it comes to actual basketball games, the scoreboard never lies. Now, as we look ahead to Game 3 in Atlanta, the contrast couldn't be more clear. One team is focused on playing basketball and making history. The other is focused on making excuses and creating distractions. And if you're wondering which approach is more likely to succeed in a winner-take-all elimination game, well, I think we already have our answer. The Atlanta Dream got exposed on live television for exactly what they are, a team more interested in spinning narratives than winning basketball games. And that, folks, is how you destroy your credibility in front of the entire basketball world in real time.